I'm not allowed to go outside of our travel agency to save money, so I didn't. I have quite a flair for finding cheap travel and accommodation. My travels on a strict budget have taken me to 3 continents so far, so I'd say I've picked up a few tricks. Nowadays, I get the pleasure of doing short trips with my work when attending conferences and seminars. As I prefer not to waste money, I've arranged the trips privately and then requested it paid back afterwards. It worked out well for all of us, budget-wise. Then we got new directions handling travel costs. We all had to go through a new travel agency whenever booking. Well, anything. Cat? Listen. Hey. Can I have your chair back later? The top brass held a talk about it and everything. We were warned that onwards, any application for money back after a trip booked privately may be outright denied. I had tried to use the travel agency before, but found that it only allowed a few overpriced airlines and hotels, and it wouldn't let you book anything outside of their approved connections. Cue Malicious Compliance. Where I previously combined train and bus tickets to reduce costs, I now just selected the top option. Oh, 5 times more expensive? Too bad. A nice low-range hotel that covered my needs? No longer available. Choose suggested option. I guess I'll stay at the Hilton then. I just got back from a trip that cost 5 times what I could have paid if I had been able to do my thing. No flights were available the day I could have left, so I went a day earlier. No afternoon flight was available after my meeting, so I stayed an extra night. I was basically off work a half week extra because of that travel agency, and the trip ended up costing more than my monthly paycheck. Oh, and the travel agency? They were apparently the lowest bidder on the contract, claiming they'd supply the cheapest travel options. Oh well, I enjoyed the complimentary champagne. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Storytime with Uncle Jon. Today we're taking a look at r/malicious compliance. My eyes were looking a little watery when I first started reading that story because I had just had one of the biggest sneezing fits I've had all year, right as I was getting ready to read. And then of course in the middle of the story we got this guy, Nickel. He's kind of a sore loser when he loses his chair, so something we'll have to deal with throughout the video. I've worked for a few companies where, they always suggest or demand that you have to go through their vendors to do travel, buy certain supplies, yada, 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 claiming that it'll be cheaper. Well, not only is it not cheaper, it's usually way more expensive like this guy. I don't know about 5 times, but it's always at least doubled. And they're some of the most pain in the ass companies to deal with. What I could have got cheaper and in like 2 or 3 days shipping time before now ends up being, several weeks shipping time, lead times, and at least double the cost. So, corporate bean counters. Yeah. Never call you again? Okay, done. About a dozen years ago, I was working in a banking call center. The company was informed of some governmental change that required us to have a tax ID number for everyone with our business credit card account, and we had some ridiculously short time frame to be in compliance. There were tens of thousands of accounts with this ID missing. It hadn't been previously required. A big group of us were given lists of customers and told to call them and ask for the tax ID number. If they had it, we added it to the account and all was well. If they didn't have it, we were to switch them to a consumer, non-business card. If they didn't want that, we'd cancel on the spot. Due to the short time frame for compliance, the customer had to tell us on the call which they preferred. Another nifty caveat was that we were only making 2 calls and we're not leaving messages. We couldn't drag this out waiting for people to eventually call us back. If we got the person on the first call, we were done. If we still didn't get them on the second call either, the account was auto-canceled. Ouch. This sounds like a horrible job to do, but it was actually going really well. 99% of the people I called were happy to comply or switch accounts. Then I called Karen. The phone rang, and I was about to hang up when I heard that pause and the double ring that tells you the call was forwarded. So I waited. Karen picks up and says, "What?" I could hear the background noise like she was out in public. I say, "Hi, this is Jane Doe with XX Bank," and Karen interrupts and says, "What the F are you calling my cell phone? Are you effing stupid? I told you people to never call this number." I tried to tell her, well, I didn't. The call was... She interrupts me again and says, "Oh my God, now you're going to lie to me? Pay attention. Never call me again. I use your credit card for everything, and I pay it, so you have no reason to call me. Got it?" I say, "Yes, but..." And then she hangs up. Malicious Compliance kicks off. "Okay, so I spoke to you, maybe a dozen words. You didn't provide your tax ID, and I can't call you back because you said never to do that. Next button, cancel. Notes, customer did not provide the tax ID and demanded we never call her again." I really, really, really hope she was out shopping and had fun when her card was declined at the next store. I've had some banks before and credit card companies that were pretty annoying when they started calling you, but I would always at least allow them to let me know why they were calling. If they were calling because there was something wrong with my account, blah, 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 something important, I'm going to hear them out and I'm going to deal with it accordingly. If it's some other BS, I still let them get their spiel out, at least most of it. If it's something they're trying to sell me, no, go pound sand. I'm not going to tell them to never call me again because then, something like this scenario happens, but I will let them know that I'm really not pleased with being cold called, to get me to buy something. Oh, I just noticed my neighbor's got his lights all purple. They're not flashing right now. He's set up for Halloween. I got to get some pictures of this guy's yard for you guys. When I say this guy goes all out on decorations, I mean, I think his Halloween decorations cost more than I make in about 2 years' time, even with my new job. Wow. Guy loves his holidays. What can I say? We're not allowed to ship products using anything other than a certain company? Okay, sure. I work in the apparel industry, and one of our customers is a company who frequently finds itself on lists of top 10 in the Americas. From our location, one of their gigantic distribution centers is only about 90 minutes away. Once, we did a very small order for them, resulting in only about 10% of the MOQ. We thought instead of shipping it through ExpressX, why not just drop it off at their DC, distribution center, since the shipping address was to their distribution center. It would get there faster than by ExpressX and cheaper too. When our driver went there, the DC refused to take delivery. No problem. We called the person in charge on their side with our company, and we laid out the problem. Well, the person was extremely rude and simply said, "We do not intend to accept any deliveries made other than the contractual method of using ExpressX." And shot off multiple emails to our VP, president, and our holding company CEO about not following contractually required methods. So our driver comes back, we ship the product using ExpressX. 3 weeks ago, a frantic call on a decently large order, but extremely urgent order. Okay, we have our time estimates to complete the work and the shipping date we would be able to manage. Agreed upon an email. We shipped it through ExpressX even though it was said to use any means necessary to try to get it to them by the shipping date. Enraging phone calls and screaming duels. Our holding company CEO went over the vendor manager's head and to their purchasing and inventory VP. Complained about the manager's behavior and their previous email about only using ExpressX as contractually stated, and our adherence to the shipping date, as we packed the trailer and locked it with a seal and date on it. The ExpressX semi came at 1 a.m. to pick up the trailer, not our fault. We followed the contractually stated rules. Guess who just lost 9 major universities and college football from their vendor management portfolio? Ouch. That's going to leave a mark. I understand. Contracts are contracts, and I can understand where, okay, take the delivery that they were, sending directly to your distribution center, and then maybe send out an email and say, listen, we took it this time, but let's try not to do that, guys. There's a reason we do it, whatever. There may be stupid reasons, they might be legit reasons. I don't know. To just flat out, just like the Karen in the last story where, you throw the baby out with the bathwater and, all of a sudden you've basically just laid it out so that you've screwed yourself on at least one order coming up. And then you want to try to blame everybody else again. That doesn't work. There should be caveats in there, For most orders, use ExpressX. And for extenuating circumstances, you are allowed to deviate and go to XYZ company or whatever company you choose. And, the cost can increase by, say, around number 20, 25%, whatever, for the sake of time. So careful what you ask for, right? Guy who flips out over his internet speed gets less. So a little backstory. I work for an internet provider company as a lead in their internet repair department. This means that I get calls from agents who work there that either need help with a situation because they're stuck and don't know what to do, or when a customer escalates the call asking for a supervisor, manager, or someone above them. My department mainly handles internet issues like being offline, outages, replacing equipment, etc. So the other day was like any other. I'm getting calls from agents needing equipment transferred from one account to another, scheduling a technician for customers who refuse to do any troubleshooting, the list goes on and on. One of my main calls is an agent asking for me to run a special tool that corrects the speed being sent to a customer. This usually happens when a customer upgrades or downgrades their internet speed and it doesn't take right away. And this only takes a couple minutes. This comes in later. On this particular day, I get a call from an agent that says her customer wants to speak to a supervisor because he's not getting the speeds he pays for. This happens quite a lot, usually because most people don't understand how the internet works and all the factors that come into the result of a speed test. This can include a lot of things like how far away you are from your router, if you're testing on Wi-Fi or directly connected, how many devices you're currently using, and even things like how your residence is built, because stone and concrete do not allow Wi-Fi signals to travel through. Neither do plaster walls, let me tell you how I know. When I looked at the customer's account, I see that he's currently subscribed to 100 megabits per second. Megabits per second. Yeah, I said it right. Our normal plans are 300, 500, and a gig, which is 1,000. I asked the agent what results he was getting, and she told me that it was 437 megabits per second, which is way over what he's paying for. I told the agent to go ahead and transfer him to me, and I'll continue the discussion. Once the customer gets to me, we'll call him Darren, I introduce myself and ask how I can help. Darren immediately begins yelling and cursing at me about how he's not getting what he pays for, and is extremely upset, and even demanding credit to his account because of this. I begin to try to apologize to Darren and explain that speed test results can vary based on certain conditions. He cuts me off and states that he's recording the call and will be posting everything I say on social media. I tell him that's fine, as our calls are recorded for quality assurance purposes as well, and everything will be documented. Darren then proceeds to continue cursing, stating that this is unacceptable, and I should be ashamed of myself for working for a company that doesn't provide the product people are paying for, while he rants on and on. I noticed that he had recently changed his internet plan from 500 megabits per second to 100 megabits per second 2 days ago. That's a big drop. Now, as I mentioned before, sometimes the internet changes don't happen right away, and we have to run a specific tool to fix it. This can happen when the modem hasn't been reset to reflect these changes. I try to tell Darren that he's receiving more than what he's paying for, and again, he cuts me off, stating that he'll be reporting us to the FCC, BBB, and filing a lawsuit about this, all while recording our conversation. Now, normally I wouldn't care, and I'd allow the speed to continue going through until the system automatically fixes it, but his attitude and rude demeanor made me feel otherwise. Cue the malicious compliance. I respond to Darren saying, "Sir, you are absolutely right, and I'm so sorry you're not receiving the speeds that you're paying for. I'll get this fixed right away." Now, this plan that Darren was on, the 100 speed, is a plan that only certain customers can get if they're financially unable to make normal payments, meaning he had to apply for this program and be approved based on low income. So I run the fix tool on his internet and reduce the speed down to 100 as he requested. I then ask him how his speed results are now. Darren then responds, "It's even worse than it was before. What kind of trick are you trying to pull on me?" I responded, "Sir, you told me you were not getting the speeds you were paying for, and you were right. You recently applied for financial assistance to be downgraded to 100, and I fixed that for you. It was absolutely wrong of us to be sending you 500 when you were only paying for 100. I apologize for the inconvenience." After a few minutes of silence, Darren then muffled to himself, "This is ridiculous," and proceeds to disconnect the call. I left notes on his account so any future agent would know what had happened that day, and that he was not entitled to any credit on his bill. All I can say is be careful what you complain about. Damn Skippy. Now listen, there's no love lost between me and cable companies and internet providers and things like that. I've had my run-ins with them. Sometimes I was wrong, sometimes I was right, but overall it hasn't been too bad, but there have been some painful experiences for them and me, I'm sure. I'm not always the easiest person to deal with, but I do try. I try to be calm and collected and, think my way through situations, unlike Darren. We currently have gigabit internet service here because I upload and download videos constantly. My son-in-law does gaming, and there's about, I don't know, I'm taking a wild stab in the dark, 25 to 30 different devices on Wi-Fi at any given moment. I'm plugged directly into a router, so I have the main company router, the ISP router, in my living room where the cable comes into the house. I ran a hard line from that to a router here in the back room, two opposite ends of the house, and then I'm hardwired from that to my PC, and on average I get between 700 and 900 megabits per second, which is fine. I can't complain about that, because even if I was the only person in the house using the internet at that time, which there's always something running in the background, TVs, tablets, laptops, phones, anyway, but even outside of that, you have to think about the neighbors in the neighborhood. When they all come home and they start getting on the internet when they're from their day jobs, that will put a strain on your internet service provider, and it will, kind of tank your speeds a little bit. I don't know if it's supposed to be that way, but that's the way it's always been, at least in my areas where I've always had internet. So, sometimes you just got to deal with it. That's why a lot of times I like to do my uploads in the middle of the night, because they're just snappy, man. It's funny, I did the video the other day from the, I'm a bridge tender part-time. If you go back and watch my last video, you'll see. Anyway, and I have Straight Talk home internet service. So there's a little white box about this big that you get from Walmart for $99 and some change. And it's on Straight Talk. Straight Talk is owned by whatever the other pay-as-you-go cell service is. There's two big ones and they're both together. But anyway, The network that they use is Verizon, which is where I have my phone. But rather than text my phone by hooking my laptop to it, I had this home internet thing. We use it for our camper a lot. Well, I took that in my backpack up to the drawbridge house and shack house. What is that thing called? I never asked. Anyway, the little tower, the little mini tower, like Rapunzel, but with beards. I set that thing up on the desk and I make sure it's in a window facing one of the local cell towers. I'll tell you, that upload, I mean, it took longer than here for sure, but for $45 a month, that ain't bad. I actually did okay with incoming and outgoing, uploads and downloads. So if you're ever looking for something that's, fairly cheap and does really well with stable service for the most part. I mean, we run it in our car from, the eastern shore of Maryland all the way to northern Florida and back. And we have service all the way up and down 95 corridor and everything. And yeah, that way my daughter can do her schoolwork on her Chromebook and all that stuff. So, hey, I don't get any money from them, but figured I'd let you know. Well, that's the seasoning you asked for. This story isn't quite as malicious as certain other submissions, but it shows what a pedantic, I can never say that word, easily annoyed little shit I could be as a kid. So I thought it might fit. My dad and I love to cook, so we tend to have a good variety of ingredients, especially herbs and spices. When I was in, I want to say middle school, we discovered garlic powder, and we used it on almost everything that it could possibly taste good on. To my annoyance, my mom insisted on calling it garlic salt, even after I explained several times that it's a different seasoning. Yeah, it's different. Finally, I had my dad pick up a shaker of actual garlic salt and waited. Eventually, my mom asked me to bring her the salt, pepper, and garlic salt for whatever she was eating, so I did just that. When she inevitably asked why her food was so salty, I explained to her that I brought her exactly what she asked for: salt, pepper, and garlic salt. She never called it garlic salt again, and I felt so satisfied with my smartassery. Edit. Holy crap, I never expected this to blow up like it has. Thank you for all your responses, except for the guy who decided to shit in the punch bowl. You need to touch grass, my friend. This has made a stressful week a little better. Keep being awesome. Second edit. I'm not dealing with this BS. The douchebag's blocked. Oh, God. So I couldn't see the posts from the shit stir, so I'm not sure exactly what he said, but yeah, evidently he was just a special kind of special person. I'm not sure how you could argue with this. I mean, it was malicious compliance. It was cute. It was wholesome. Mom's blood pressure was probably up for about 24 hours, but it'll be all right. But I will say there is a difference. When I first started cooking as a kid, my mom always had garlic salt in the cupboard. Now, when I was cooking things, I used to like to use salt and pepper as a base for a lot of savory dishes and then put garlic salt on top of that. After a while, I learned that, that's a little, I like salty stuff, but, I know it's not good for me and not everybody likes it that way. So I learned to actually put the salt shaker away and use the black pepper, whatever other spices in the garlic salt to add my salt and garlic at the same time. These days, I prefer to control the amount of salt that goes in, and I use garlic powder. So, yeah, but, they are different. I can also see where mom's coming from with this because, quite honestly, as a society, we get in these bad habits, and it's all over the world. It's not just us. But, how many people, especially my age and older, call a copy machine a Xerox machine? Xerox isn't the only company. In fact, they're one of the smaller companies. And I think Canon's one of the biggest commercial copier companies out there. We call tissues Kleenex, and some of this is regional. Don't get me started. But, we tend to call things by their commercial name. Whatever the most popular brand was at that time tends to be what you call all of it. So, agita. Had tomato sauce tonight. Oof. I was told I should go elsewhere, so I did. About a year ago, I was working for a manufacturing company that had mismanaged itself into a zero operating cash scenario long before I got hired on. After all the managers who had hired me in got fired with no notice, I got nervous and started looking around for other employment. At one point, I was trying to update a customer with status regarding some in-process issue that landed squarely in a newly appointed, but formally as well, engineering manager's responsibility, and he told me I should never have brought it up and that I should just keep my mouth shut. I told him it was too late for that and that they wanted an update, but he was too busy watching TV on his iPad, which as far as I can tell is all he ever really did. So I told him that I would just reach out to his contacts for the update myself. He said, yeah, do that. And if you don't like how long it takes me to respond to the customer, you should just go elsewhere. Little did he know I had an interview the next day. I've never quit a job with no notice in my life, until that day. Get F, Timmy. Yeah, get F, Timmy. So that's a manager who knows the ship is sinking. He is one of the rats. He's just not ready to run up the mooring line to the docks yet. He knows the ship is sinking. He's biding his time. He's collecting as much money as he can, as much pay as he can, before he's got to jump ship or he gets booted. So, yeah, sounds like a great place to work. Manager doesn't allow skin color descriptions. Oh dear. Not very satisfying, but malicious compliance nonetheless. Years ago, I was working at a corporate chain sports bar. One of the managers famously had short man syndrome. You're describing height now, where he had to be right at all times and didn't allow anyone to deviate from his edicts. One day, a server was asking him to go talk to a customer due to our mistake. When asked which person to speak to, the server replied, "Table 300, the black guy wearing," as she was cut short by the manager yelling at her, "We do not refer to people that way. We do not see race. We do not see color. They're all customers at this company. Do you understand me?" Manager was sure to nitpick absolutely everything and micromanage her for the rest of the night. Fast forward a few weeks, same issue with the same server. Remembering his previous screaming fit, she told him to talk to the guy wearing orange at table 250. It was football season. Virtually everyone in the building was wearing the home team's orange. Manager had to awkwardly ask the customers who had an issue, deeply embarrassing him. Once he was back in the kitchen, he really laid into the server for embarrassing him before firing her on the spot. The next day, we all verified his previous instructions and her malicious but correct compliance, so the general manager was forced to call her up and offer her job back. Manager was not disciplined in any way, but that's restaurant life. All in orange. Sounds almost like Tennessee. When I was down in Tennessee, man, every weekend, all you would see was orange jerseys and orange flags. When they first started coming out with the little flag that you roll up, it clips over the top edge of your window and you roll it up in there to pinch it in, and they got flags all over their cars, Looks like a presidential motorcade except, in clown colors. But anyway, this manager sounded like a real shitheel. There is absolutely nothing wrong with describing somebody by the color of their skin, the color of their hair, the size of their body. Try to be kind about it, the heavier set lady at table 300, whatever. If you want to know the specific person to speak to without having to ask the rest of the table which one of y'all has a problem, then you kind of got to let me describe the person to you, There's just no other way to do it. Not reasonably anyway, unless you, tell the customer, "Hey, hold this napkin up in the air and I'll send the manager right over to you, Oh, the one holding up the napkin. That's idiotic. But that's a whole other can of worms that we're just not going to get into on this channel. So anyway, that manager sounds like he really needs like a boost of self-confidence. And I got to give you a little secret. You know what would help with that? Using a handmade soap with a scent of your choice. Semi-custom scents at that. It's amazing. You go to the grocery store and you can find some good soaps there. Don't get me wrong. I'm a Dial and Coast and all that kind of, I'm cheap. Whatever's cheap and available is generally what I used to use. But I got to say, there's something to be said for using something that's handmade by small artisan companies, and with 25 or 30 cents to choose from, how could you go wrong? You could pick something that makes you feel good, smell good, and maybe even it'll brighten your disposition enough to not be an asshole. But if you're interested in anything like that, do me a favor and check out our website, because we make that soap. Right here, this web address right here, unclejohnsoap.com. And I haven't done it yet. I've been kind of busy and lazy. But I'm hoping to get another coupon code up for a special next weekend. So keep an eye out for that on one of the near future videos. All right, guys, till the next one. We'll see you.